Hi guys, this is Crossy from Eclipse Gaming TV and welcome to episode 1 of Crossy's Corner. Thank you for giving this a bit of a listen. In the past I've tried to make a gaming podcast of sorts and had some half decent feedback from it, but I never really managed to get the momentum for it going, a bit like virtually everything that I've tried to do in the past. And I hadn't planned on reviving the idea for ECTV at all, as the choice for esports talk shows out there are pretty excellent now, and it proves that they can do, or, well, as you can see, with the lack of webcam, which I tried to plug in, and it's so old it doesn't even get supported by Windows 7 anymore and doesn't run on it, proves that there are people out there doing this much better than I probably ever could. But I'm going to give it a go anyway, as I had a moment of inspiration and decided that I'd try it once, throw it out there, and any feedback that you guys have, positive or negative, feel free to throw it my way, and we may or may not see Crossy's Corner continue much past this first episode. I guess I'd better give you a bit of a background on me first of all, because you might not be too familiar with sort of me as an individual and what I've done in gaming terms, why I've got any reason to throw up a podcast type thing anyway, for example. And it also sets the scene a bit for our topic of the day, which is going to be why so serious, which will all become clear very soon. But you might have watched some of my videos and you'll see that it's a gaming related channel. It's something I've got a lot of passion for, and the reason for that is I've been gaming competitively for 10 years, over 10 years now in fact it is. And by competitively, it means I'm playing games in teams with people, in leagues, matches, that sort of thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's taking up large chunks of my life in playing and training and practicing, because it has been up and down in that regard depending on other commitments and that sort of thing. But during that time it has been, I've played in some very high-end teams, all in games sort of long dead and buried, unfortunately for me, so the glory days are well and truly over. But I did play in a couple of teams, a couple of games that were classed as some of the best in Europe or in the world in one case, and I was playing with a bunch of Americans staying up until 4 AM because the European scene in that game was terrible. So I've been around a little bit, I guess you could say. And I really got my teeth sunk into the Counter-Strike series in 2005 when my other games sort of disappeared off the radar with non-existent competitive scenes. And since then, my gaming career has been a whole lot less successful, unfortunately. In 2007, I turned my attention to esports commentary, which was a bit of an interesting story in itself. And at one point, there was a few people saying I was one of the best in Europe as FPS commentator, which was a title I'd never particularly agreed with. I was always one of my worst critics and still am, and that seemed wildly over the top, and I never really got a chance to prove that either to myself or to anyone else either way, because there wasn't a whole lot going around at the time in sort of 2007, 2008, and it was all, as the esports industry still is, very much who you know rather than what you know, and I wasn't really moving in the right circles. So yeah, despite all the good feedback, I've never really taken the commentary side of things as far as I would have liked to either. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So as you can tell, I've been around and about quite a long time, and as far as gaming goes, or Counter-Strike goes, there isn't a lot that you can tell me about the game that I don't know already, is kind of where I'm trying to get to with this. And it leads on to the topic of the day, why so serious? And I came about this because it's Easter weekend here at the time when I'm recording this, which basically means 4 glorious days off of work. I've worked full-time for getting on for 6.5 years now, so finding time for gaming, it all took a back seat sort of back in whenever I started, and just haven't had the time to put into it as much as I would have liked, and that goes for playing and the commentary side. But yeah, days like this, I've got to make the most of it. And due to feeling like I was coming down with man flu, which hasn't worked out quite as bad as I would have thought, and delays and cancellations with our train, my long drive around Europe, Germany, Czech Republic, etc., I decided I was going to give that a miss and stay at home and get some stuff done instead, because as I think, yeah, okay, I'm starting to free up a bit of time again. I go and get myself a girlfriend, and any free time I did have is spent with her by choice, I will add, as well. I'd much rather be spending time with her than sitting behind a microphone and a computer, as much fun as I do have with that more often than not. And yeah, as she's working this whole weekend, thinking I was going to be away, it gives me a bit of free time to hopefully put some things into the channel, and also just to chill out, recharge the batteries a bit, and maybe get a bit of gaming in. And that's exactly what I did. I woke up this morning thinking, oh yeah, I'll play a little bit of matchmaking on CSGO. Matchmaking, by the way, is if you don't really have a full team of 5 or it's just you, that sort of thing. You can jump on and you get mixed with random players, sort of 10 random players of round about your kind of skill bracket. So yeah, it really is a mix of what you get. Let's put it that way. And I thought, yeah, I'll have a little game or two and see what happens. And the first game I jumped into was not the best game of all time. It was 2 groups of 2 that had sort of paired up, and me as well, making up the 5. So it was kind of less of a mix as you would normally expect, because 2 of the guys knew each other, or 2 sets of the guys knew each other, and we're probably on like a chat program, a TeamSpeak or a Mumble or something like that. And yeah, it was strange. There's this one guy in there that was just picking holes in literally everything that happened, and I guess a few of those will have been understandable. I mean, it's my first game of the day, as I mentioned in the channel update. I've had about 6 weeks without internet as well, so I wasn't exactly at my finest first game, having woken up, etc, etc, but still, he's properly going for it, this guy, and he's criticising not just me, he's laying into the other 2 that aren't with his friend as well. And then I'm looking at this guy, and we're getting through the game, and we're about 10 rounds in, he's only got 5 kills. And then you also look a couple of rounds later, and he's gone and end up in a 2 versus 1 situation with him and his mate, and he's gone and failed it miserably, or the pair of them have. And yet he's still going in criticising people left, right and centre. And as I say, these games are matched to your skill group. I've got, for any of you that play CSGO, I've got the Crossy AKs, which is probably on the lower end of players that play competitively in leagues, etc, etc. So looking at that compared to my experience, etc, I should be looking to step that up as best I can. Actually, I need to be a bit further along than I am as far as skills go. And I've got in the bracket with these guys, and he's been very, very aggressive about his criticism. Some of it which is fair, some of it not so much, and some of it are things that he's doing exactly the same thing for. And it's, instead of just being, oh, jog on mate, shut up, can't be arsed with you, bloody 12-year-old, I start going into this odd rant about how his achievements in gaming are going to count for nothing in 5 years and he should just enjoy it while he can, which is very odd. That's normally not the way that you go, and I'm a bit surprised I came out with it myself. But it sort of made a point, I think, in that. Alright, let me start from the beginning with it, really. The way gaming has gone now, if you did it 5 years ago, I couldn't really understand it, because there's not a whole lot of money floating into it, and there's still some work that needs to be done, because you can see from CGS Championship Gaming Series, which for those of you that haven't been around when that happened or just don't know about it, it was pretty much a system where there'd be draft picks and a couple of games, and various franchises would play against each other. And long story short, these guys that got drafted to the teams were on 30 grand a year salaries to play games, which is outstanding. After 6 years in working in insurance, I'm not earning that, so it was a real sign. And moving on now, you've got teams that are playing full-time, being paid salaries to game, being sent out to various events. And to be fair, even if you're not at that sort of level, but you are a good player in a good team, then chances are you're going to get your events paid for. You're going to get to go and travel and play at these LAN events and the like, and the only thing that you really have to pay for is your food if you haven't got that covered by your sponsors as well, and it turns out being a cheap holiday. So these days I can understand if you don't have a job, or you're a student, or you have enough time on your hands to be able to play games, it kind of makes sense to do it if that's where your preference is, because maybe there's not money to be made, but there's a chance where you can support yourself and end up going to LAN events with hotel paid for, which is what, 100 quid for 4 or 5 days, if not more, depending on how upmarket you go. Ticket to the event, 60, 80 quid. So you got that, plus you got food on top of that, drink on top of that, all that sort of stuff. You got the petrol to get up there. If you've got a big chunk of that covered, then you're actually talking the kind of money that you would spend on like a week in Tenerife, probably, when you start adding it all together. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating just a bit, but for the money that you spend over a LAN weekend, you could probably get yourself to somewhere like a Tenerife, to a cheap place with hotel all-inclusive and your flight. And then on top of that, you got your spending money while you're out there, which is maybe where the difference is. And for that, it kind of makes sense in itself to go off and earn yourself a holiday by having your cost of a LAN event covered, which is something, if you're into your gaming, you probably want to be attending anyway. So I can understand why people would want to take gaming seriously, but you've got to do it in the right context as well. I mean, if you're in a team game with 5 people that you're relying on and you're expecting to be up to your sort of level, then it's understandable that things get a bit heated, and I hold my hands up. Even though I'm recording this, I am pretty bad for it if I'm playing in with my regular group of players, which is people that have been playing as long as, if not longer than I have. I'm one of the younger of the group at 25, and that's properly old in gaming terms, trust me. Yeah, and you see these guys playing like they haven't played for 10 years, like they picked up the game yesterday sometimes, and it gets properly frustrating, and you do kick off at them for it. But that's not just out of frustration, that's because you know that they can do so much better, and you kind of have to give them a little kick sometimes. So I am bad for that, but that's a different context. That's in people that I've played with for a long old time, where I know their games inside and out, I know what potential they've got, and this is people that I've been to LANs with, or was planning to go to LANs with, etc. So it's kind of on a different level. But and then you go the next step up, of course, and you go to properly high-end players that will be, playing in some of the best teams in the continent, that will be holding themselves and their teammates in an even higher regard. But you just have to take a different attitude when you go into matchmaking. It is for people that you probably haven't played with before. Chances are you're not going to be using the in-game comms. You might type to each other once in a while, but it's a whole different environment, and you're playing against teams that are in the same boat. So as far as strategy goes and communication, it's not going to be anywhere near what you would expect. And you see some of these guys from the best teams in Europe, they bang a stream up and go on matchmaking, and they've probably got music on in the background at the time, and they will go and rip it up, but they'll play in a completely different way. I mean, for example, going back to the example of the team that I play in, we've had a guy that's been the main strat caller for a couple of years now, really. But the feedback that seems to come from it, I mean, from myself included and from some of the other players, is that we tend to enjoy it more and play better when we don't have that strat calling in play, and we just split off and do our own thing and hunt for frags, and then we play off of each other, and it seems to work better that way, which is great. And that's pretty much all you can do in these matchmaking games, is react to what your teammates are doing and try and help out and create an avenue that's going to be useful to the team going forward. And if that involves just sticking some music on, chilling out, and letting it all flow, then fantastic, that's got to be good for you. But by the same token, if you're going into these things thinking, oh, I'm going to take this really seriously, I'm going to go well keen in it, and your teammates aren't going to be on the same page with you would expect, aren't going to be reacting to anything anywhere near as quickly as they should be because they haven't got that communication element that you would if you were a team, etc. It's a completely different environment, and it just baffles me that these people will go in and play these games in the wrong mindset, which is pretty much all it is. And going back to my guy that I was playing with today, looking at him, well, I really don't see any future for him at the highest level, judging by the things that I've seen, during that game. And you've got to be realistic as well about this stuff. And you've got to sit down and take a good hard look at yourself and think, right, okay, what level am I at now? What time have I got to put into this? What do I want to get out of this in the end? Is it possible that I can get from A to B knowing what I know about where I'm at now? I mean, yeah, okay, fair enough. If you play a game 4 or 5 hours a day, or you do anything for 4 or 5 hours a day, then you are going to get pretty good at it to a point before you hit that skill barrier and you just can't go any further. And if I could sit here playing 4 or 5 hours a day every day on Counter-Strike, then yeah, I would be probably at the kind of level when someone might want to pay for me to go to a LAN event and represent their team and cover their costs for me. But let's put it this way, working in a management position at an insurance company, that ends up meaning more to me. So from a personal point of view, I've decided that gaming and even commentary to a point, which is pretty much where my next step is going to be, and where my real chance of becoming a fixture in esports would be. I look at that and I think, okay, fair enough. If someone offers me the opportunity to commentate full time on a salary of some sort, or if they do what happened with Pansy and the ESL lot and flew me out to Germany and gave me a place to stay, I would sit there and look at it and think, yeah, this is really tempting. I would love to do this, but if you look at the whole lot, the finances involved in it, the sort of the long-term prospects, the promotion prospects, the room to grow, esports, you would hope it's going to move in the right direction and go from strength to strength, but there's every chance it could go the other way and collapse, and I could jack in the 6 years I put in my current job to do that, and 6 months down the line I don't have a job again, everything's gone kaput, gaming is nothing. That is a very real possibility, and you'd have to sort of look at the whole thing and think, I'm going to have to stick with my boring desk job. And I think a lot of these players, when they're 17, 18, they don't think that way. And it's understandable. When I was 17, 18, I didn't think that way. When I was 22, 23, I wasn't really thinking that way, and so all these great dreams of, oh, I'll be a radio presenter, or oh, I'll be a commentator and make my money out of that, or whatever pipe dream comes to my head. But as you get older and wiser and more experienced, you start to wake up to this stuff, and you'll look back on days when you maybe got a little bit too keen with your whole gaming experience and a little bit worked up, and you'll think, yeah, okay, maybe I didn't get as much enjoyment out of my time playing games at quite a high level as I could have done, and maybe my performances suffered because I was so tense and worked up about stuff, when if I took a breather and simmered down, I maybe could have been more free with the way I played. I could have sort of picked up more frags that way. For example, is all things that would go through your thought process. And I guess the point I'm trying to make for anyone that's listening out there and playing games and spending quite a bit of time playing games, if that's what makes you happy, then fantastic. If it doesn't, if it ends up being frustrating, then think, alright, well, look at where I'm at, look at where I'm going, the people I'm playing with, the amount of time I'm putting into this, how much I'm thinking I'm going to improve, and then look at it and say, will anyone remember what you've done in gaming in 5 years' time? And a lot of the times you're going to think about that and you're going to say, no, they won't. And then you might start to work in a slightly different way about what you wanted to do. Maybe you decide you wanted to learn an instrument, or you might say, you know what, I keep neglecting my career in order to focus on gaming. Like, I don't put in that extra time at the end of the day because I've got to get back for team practice, or something along that line. And then maybe you think, I could make a lot more money if I didn't game as much and did something else. And maybe with the money you could do something which isn't gaming. It is something that wasn't out of reach before because it needed more. I don't know, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I think my point is that going keen in gaming is not a bad thing, because if that's what you want to do and you've got the potential, then there are places where you can get the success that you want, and you can do it without forking out loads of money for it. You can, get to go to these events for cheap, which is great. But by the same token, if you're not going to reach those sorts of accolades, then just take it as it is. Take it as a bit of fun. Get some mates together that you enjoy playing with and that you have a laugh with, and just go out and play and enjoy it. And of course, put the practice in, because from a personal point of view, and I think a lot of people feel the same about this, if you go and you play out of your skin and you're beaten by a better team, you can accept that. You can think, yeah, okay, they're a better team, hands up, fair play to them, and I did my best, I gave it everything I could, I left it all on the table and it wasn't good enough. That's quite a humbling thing when you get to that point, but it's also, a great thing. You walk away from that with a real buzz, and you think, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And you go, and it's strange that, because you've just got beaten by someone. Maybe it was a close encounter, maybe they ran all over you, but if you can say that you gave it your best shot against them, then you're going to be coming away from that feeling really good about it. But if you end up going into it, and even if you go and win, but you don't play all that well, you can come away, and that's quite an empty victory in the end, because you think, didn't really enjoy that. Picked up the W and all that, but I didn't have fun doing that. And the main reason, or one of the big reasons why that's probably happened, aside from, maybe you're not quite feeling it and wasn't your day, etc., it might be that you're just a bit too tense. Maybe it's just because you're trying too hard. You want to be focused on the game. Yeah, of course you do. But if you take that one step too far and overthink yourself, you put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in, that doesn't favour you in the gaming environment. And that applies to anything, whether you play a strategy game, whether you're on League of Legends or HON or Dota or whatever you call that, or you're playing a first-person shooter. It all applies. If you're tense, you're not going to be playing your best. If you're a little too focused, then you are going to outthink yourself, and it's probably going to end up worse off for you than if you just took a bit of a step back and a breather and thought about it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got on the point. I know I've probably repeated myself a little bit and jumped around left, right and centre. So any feedback that you've got for me, drop that in the comments section. And also any other topics you want me to cover, or any thoughts that you have on this subject that we talked about, then again throw those in the comments section. Be good to hear from any experiences you've got, whether it be teammates or yourself, or sort of screamy 12-year-olds that you've had on voice comms in a matchmaking, where someone's taken it maybe a little bit too far. Then I would love to hear about those, and I'm sure anyone else that is subscribing to the channel will be more than happy to hear those as well. And if you haven't already, throw a subscribe up. There's lots of good stuff coming. Hopefully more Crossy's Corner if we get half decent feedback. We've got live gaming commentaries from CSGO. We've got some Football Manager stuff up, a couple of Football Manager series taking place, which I wasn't expecting to put on the channel, but they seem to be quite popular. The Dover Athletic quest to take them to the Champions League, the first video on that's got best part of 1,000 views on it now, which I noticed a couple of days ago, and that's well and truly taken me by surprise. So plenty of stuff is going to be coming up on this channel. I'm sure some of it will manage to take your interest, so please feel free to check it out. And if there's anything that you want to see that I'm not doing already, then let me know. I'll see what I can do.